Hey, welcome everybody. This is Mark at Castor Abbott, and today I've got the pleasure of talking with John Lawrence. He's a independent financial advisor. Been in the business. Well, he's been in the business for quite some time in financial services, but back in 2020 he decided to make a transition from mostly the insurance side to the wealth management side. And he's got a great story, so I think a lot of people are gonna be really interested in kind of hearing his journey. Another super cool thing is that he is Atlanta based, but he operates virtually out of an unnamed location on a beach in Mexico. So I think that's super cool. We might talk about that, but maybe not. But anyways, so John, welcome, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Mark. It is a pleasure to talk to you and to get to share this story with everybody that decides to listen. So thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely. Thank you. So John, maybe you could just start by telling, just sharing what led you to get into the business in the first place?
Sure. So back in 2019, I owned an independent P&C insurance, property and casualty firm. I had it for about 5 or 6 years. And it just wasn't my passion. I mean, it's home and auto insurance. And I found myself, instead of, you build a big book and you have to service a property and casualty book pretty extensively. And it gets exhausting. And I found myself looking at markets and thinking about financial planning, and just kept pulling on me. And finally, I decided to sell that book of business and take a breath, because I think we all know when you start a financial services firm, whatever type, it can really be exhausting. And then all of a sudden, 2020, COVID hits, and my wife, Molly, we had just gotten married. We didn't have our daughter yet. And she said, you need to go for it. You're thinking about the wealth management business all the time, talking about it. And so I decided to get licensed back in 2020, and when we were living in Atlanta. And all of a sudden, I kind of had that huge reset of how do I find clients again. And when I'm 35 now, and when you start that journey of sort of kicking rocks and flipping over tires to figure it out, I went in a lot of different directions. And one of the directions I went initially was going as an intern to a very established firm in Atlanta, unpaid internship. Mm-hmm. And they were big into the seminar dinners and all that, and that was the only way that, outside of referrals, that they could get business. And that's an exhausting way to attack this business as well, because when you are just starting out, you don't have that big of an ad budget. There's a lot of pressure. You're buying everyone dinner, and it's such a saturated situation where everyone's doing it, sending out those mailers, that half the people show up just for free steak. And you're just and it kind of takes the passion away from why you originally got into the business. And so it must have taken me 18 months to figure out there's got to be another way. And I was listening to another interview that you did, Mark, with I can't remember his name right now. It's terrible. He's an advisor in Streamline Financial, an advisor in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jay
Zoller, yeah. And so Zoller, great channel, well respected. And to me, I was like, if Zoller trusts Castor Abbott, then I gotta start kind of looking in that direction a little bit. And so I think that's initially how we met there.
Got it. So I know that, when you were doing some seminars, and we've had some previous conversations and some work together, obviously, but Let's rewind back to when you were doing seminars. What were those costing you?
So one seminar, the mailer itself was about $5,000. Mm-hmm. And then the dinner, all that, that would come up to another $4,000. So you're at $9,000, $10,000. And that's just to put people in the room.
Yeah. What kind of pressure did that create for you?
It was an extreme pressure. I'm someone that actually deals a little anxiety, and man, that would ramp it up. Like sleepless nights, really. I mean, when you have a $10,000 ad budget and it goes from 10 to 0, and you've got some folks in the room and you have to execute, it certainly wasn't a life, and it's not a good life to amount of pressure even put on my wife.
Mm. How did that? Um, did that impact you in the area of like offering things that you might not have like, hey, I'm not sure this is like the best, or you're offering things that you were like, I don't know, like I wish I could do better for this person, or did you have any of that going on?
That's a huge problem. So I morally, yes, it challenges you morally
Mm,
because your choices become, would you like to go out of business or would you like to offer a product that's not suitable?
mm,
And I myself, I never pushed something
mm-hmm,
that wasn't correct for the client. We even started, it was almost just a bad business model because I wouldn't push a product that wasn't correct. And to survive in that business model environment, you kind of have to.
yeah, because of the expense.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. How often do you think that goes on?
Oh, I mean, I think it's rampant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a sad situation.
Yeah. My observation that is it happens quite a bit, far
Yeah.
more than anybody would like to admit.
I agree. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that, for a lot of folks, has created a bad taste for the industry as at large, which is
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate because there's a lot of great operators in this business, but there are a lot of what I'd call bad actors,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the public they can't tell the difference in many ways, right? Because the patient often is not very good at self-diagnosing and like figuring out what they actually need,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would be horrible if you didn't take your doctor's advice and then the doctor went out of business because of that. Terrible business model,
It's
doctor.
not a very good business model. No, I'd agree with you.
And I have
Okay.
to say, I did stop the seminars before I found you.
Yeah, I remember
So,
the conversation. Um, well, so tell me about that. So, COVID hits, you had been doing seminars, and now you're like, okay, can't do seminars. Everything's closed. Um, where you kind of pushed, at the encouragement of your wife, she was like, hey, move all the chips in, like go all in on this. All right. So,
yeah, so my story's reverse. I got licensed during COVID, and then as we came out, I started doing seminars.
okay, got it. Got it. And so at what point were you like, I can't do seminars anymore? And then where did that take you?
Sure. I think my wife Molly and I, we had done maybe 10 seminars or something like that. And we had already scheduled a seminar. We both looked at each other and said, we're done. Like, we don't enjoy this. This isn't us. And so we had already planned that. We didn't know the rest of our business model. And so we just said we had to stop, and we were just going to figure it out and just find, I mean, we didn't have a plan outside of get on the internet and just start digging. That's really all it was.
Got it. And in that digging, you came across an interview I did with Dave and reached out.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. Do you remember any parts of that conversation?
Yeah, I remember you asked mainly just questions,
Hmm.
and I gave you answers. And then I knew that. Well, I also talked to somebody else you worked with before we had that conversation.
Hmm.
He's out in Idaho, nice guy,
Hmm.
and so he had a very similar story as me. And so I pretty much just asked him, "What did you do? What did you spend? I'll do the same," because we shared the same actual desperation in that beginning phase of this business. And so got on the call with you. You asked questions, I gave the answers, and you pretty much said, kind of like, "Yeah, I can help you solve this problem and get you where you need to go." And I signed on with you, I think right then and there,
Hmm.
as I was ready to take the risk.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, I know the client you're speaking of. He's gone on to build a quite sizable firm, and actually we are in the process, like we're in the process with you, of building out to help take them to the next level. Like we're working on helping to take you to the next level. So okay, so then you were like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna take the risk. I'm gonna jump in here, right? And we started working together, and I know that in that process, things weren't perfect. There was some mess that was created. Do you remember, details about that? And it's okay.
Yeah.
Part of the mess was some of the things that we were doing, right?
Yeah, the mess to me was, number one, you're dealing with somebody that has feeling in their heart and their head that they have one shot at this. It's because we don't have much of an ad budget, so that creates pressure. And then I jumped all in simply based off of hearing from Zoller up in Chicago and the other advisor that I talked to. And I didn't actually do enough detailed due diligence. And it's not that I'm not saying that you guys hit anything or did anything like that. I simply didn't set the right expectations. I think the right expectations in terms of a timeline, I didn't have the understanding for that. And so then once we started getting the ball rolling, I was like, now what? And I wanted responses right then. And so I had to adjust and then get the right expectations created and that's what we're doing now. And it's much more comfortable, but that's just, kind of the way it went.
Yeah, and I think there's some of that. Anytime you engage in a new working relationship, sometimes it takes time to figure out cadence, process, and all that between two different people, two different groups of people in some cases. I think that's true. And I know we built, we actually did create some marketing for you. And I remember based on our last conversation, you had worked on, executing on some of that and, found that it didn't work. Newsflash for anybody that thinks all marketing works, it doesn't, right? Sometimes even the best marketers out there will create campaigns or create pieces that don't land. And that's part of the process, right? But, okay, so you started kind of getting into the training, you started joining some of the calls, and what did you, where was your first kind of aha moment? What happened?
Yeah, so I guess the piece that didn't work, so the white paper that was created, the content within it was valuable. However, marketing it didn't work. So I stripped out the content within that, crafted a message to just go direct messaging to folks. Yep. And so that did work. And then so I'm direct messaging people. And then I got my first appointment booked. I want to say that I started making connections online, and maybe 2 weeks later it was booked. And then I started getting one appointment every week.
And this is through LinkedIn.
This is through LinkedIn. So I was doing, I didn't even have a LinkedIn page. So let's start with that. I had to build that out with the help from your content. And then I had zero. So I'm reached out to some friends, give me at least 20 people connections. And then I started reaching out to other folks through LinkedIn. Getting in the triple digits of connections, started saying, hey, do you want an appointment? And people actually booked it using the content. And so that was my aha moment of, oh my gosh, I have a business model now. Because if you don't have a business model, you don't really have a business. So that was the aha moment.
And that's where you were before. You had stopped doing seminars, right? And you were in this transition of, I need to figure out if I can stay in this business because I don't have a model that works. Yeah.
And I can even say, when I was in the home and auto business in 2013, when I started there, I didn't have a business model. And it took me 18 months, it took longer than that. It took me 3 years to finally figure out how Google Maps worked. Then I started driving clients in. And so I was in wealth management. I was like, how do I find my Google Maps solution?
Right.
And seminars wasn't it. And finally I was like, whoa, LinkedIn, there's something here. And that was it.
Yeah, that's cool. And what was kind of, what did that feel like as you're trying to figure out your business model? What was the dinner table discussion like with you and Molly?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I was elated. I kind of, a little more emotional than I'm like up here, and she's more like, okay, let's see how it goes. And so yeah, I was elated, and just all of a sudden the wheels start turning. Oh, I can do this with that. I can do that with that, and it gets you excited, and it feels freeing, I suppose is the proper word. Yep.
And so then after you first started executing, what was the time period between when you first started executing on that to, kind of getting your first client through that process?
It was at least 3 weeks, and this is actually, to me, I thought really important, is I didn't do any paid ads, and I'm glad that I didn't, because I'd only done in-person meetings, and my first 3 weeks of booked appointments through LinkedIn, it didn't go well, simply because I had to adjust my process. And so I bungled 3 weeks of appointments. And now I close like half. And just because I kept tweaking, adjusting, and tweaking and adjusting, but doing it through LinkedIn was cost effective to do that. So that's what happened.
Yeah, I hope people don't miss that thing that John just said, is that iteration. That piece of iteration is so, so important. That, a lot of people, they'll try a thing and then they'll just be like, oh, that didn't work, and they give up. Right? But the transformation often happens by being like, okay, that didn't work. Well, let me adjust it. Let me try this. Oh, that didn't work. Well, that worked a little bit better than the last time I tried something. Maybe let me tweak it again. And that's how we improve a system or a process. Like, for sure. Like, people don't miss that.
Yeah,
like that,
I couldn't give up on having an appointment through LinkedIn. I just knew I had to.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, okay, so your wife is trying to like steady state. She's like, John, this is great. I'm so proud of you. What happened over the next 12, 24 months?
So in our personal lives, our daughter was born, and our first child, our one and only. And so there's a change in family dynamics then that everybody goes through. Is my wife, who loved working, all of a sudden was like, I really would like to stay at home with our daughter. And that became her like sole singular focus. And so then that became my sole singular focus of, she at the time was the breadwinner, doing pretty well. And she felt so bad. She was like, I want more time with our daughter. And I'm like, babe, the cavalry's coming. Okay. Got the LinkedIn going. It's a slow process, but I can see it. It's going. So really, that's kind of what the whole focus was, is just going and just trying to free my wife and retire her from corporate America, and having that goal in mind. And that was everything, I guess. Is that yeah, I hope that helps.
How long did that take?
About 2 years. Yeah, about 2 years. So, I mean, the first 2 years of being in this business, I wasted a lot of time. I learned things, but really to get the ball rolling, about 2 years to get to this moment where we're working again together on a much bigger project, and to get my wife Molly out of corporate America, about 2 years.
Yeah. How did that feel?
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. Just to not sound 1950s here, but be the man of the house and a little old school. We're kind of a traditional family, and take her out of corporate America. Let her do what she truly wants to do. I want to work. I love this business. I love spending time with my family, but that's her singular focus that she wants to do in her heart. So to be able to do that feels like a lifetime accomplishment. I guess what I told my wife, Molly, was I'm a huge tennis fan. I grew up playing tennis all my life. And if you watch somebody, like even golf or tennis, they win the US Open, Wimbledon, they fall to their knees and they're elated. I felt like that. So that's, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're, traditional values, living a very non-traditional lifestyle.
That's true. That's true.
So what, that's, it's the envy of many people, right? To live completely independent, be able to work wherever you'd like. And you chose a beach in Mexico. It's probably not terrible waking up every day.
It's nice. We got the view of the water and the mountains. And so, yeah, we're very happy and thankful to be independent.
Yeah. Would that have been possible without kind of getting this business model dialed in?
No, you can't do seminars from Mexico. So my Spanish isn't that good.
Well, cool. Well, what else, as you kind of went through this transformation, not just your personal transformation, but this business transformation, what else kind of happened as a result of, the changes that you made yourself?
Confidence. Yeah, there's like a big hit, at least to me, of not being able to provide really anything in the beginning of starting this business. So that was a big, nice, to finally hit a goal and slowly build confidence. So that was very noticeable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you tell John 3 years ago?
Yeah, I've learned a lot. I think one thing that I kind of knew back then, but had to have more confidence in that, is simply risk has to be taken in order to accomplish. And you and I have talked about this, and I kind of already knew this as well. This is the reason why I took the risk of working with you initially, is not taking a risk is a risk in itself. Sitting on your hands, not attacking is a risk in itself. And just to always have proper expectations set, whether you're the client or somebody's working with you. Because most relationships, they fray because expectations aren't set and understood. And so I think just those two things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true that so many people, they want to create a plan, they want to perfect the plan, and they keep on basically trying to perfect the plan before they ever do a thing. And you can't win if you're not willing to lose. And so many people will want to make comments from the sidelines or the stands on how a thing should be done or how it should go, but they actually never get on the field. They never get on the court. They never actually are in the game. And that's really true of what you said there, is that if you don't risk anything, you also can't win.
Yeah, that's the torture of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Is, to me, there's two types of people. One is not better than the other, but some folks, their minds, if you're an employee, that doesn't mean you're worse than an entrepreneur. It's just that's who you are as a person. You're better at being over here and maybe taking direction. But to be an entrepreneur, sometimes it's torturous because you have to take those leaps and those risks that aren't fun. I don't necessarily enjoy them as much as like maybe other people, but you have to.
Yeah, no, I get it. I've had a similar conversation with my wife of the cavalry's coming. Just, I can see the storm clouds in the distance and it's going to rain. It's been a desert for a little while, but it's coming.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's an unbelievable feeling to accomplish something that serves your family in ways that you couldn't imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose another thing I wish I would have known, I wish I would have known, is when you start a family, that's things change in ways you never could have imagined before. And and having the opportunity to deliver like that is a little bit more pressure than I ever expected. But Glad to be here doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been plenty of studies that say married men with kids make more money than single guys on average.
Never seen a study, but I can imagine that's very accurate.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to jump back to your client acquisition system that you started to dial in and get better and better at. So then, over the course of time, how many clients have you brought in through that process?
We have, through just that process, 60 clients through LinkedIn, which probably isn't a home run. I'm sure there's other people out there that have done better, but for $1,200 a year in marketing, it's a pretty good rate of return.
Yeah, and I want people to understand that when you're starting out in the business or you're early on in the business where you have what I'd call more time than you have money, you have to leverage something, right? So if you have time, then leverage the time to grow the business. But eventually what happens is that lever then will flip. You suddenly will have more money than you have time. And it's at that point where you need to then start to make a switch to start leveraging cash to basically give your time back so you can start to scale up, right? Because the time piece is finite and money is rather infinite if you've got the right thinking around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't there, yeah. So I'm finally happy to be there. That's exactly where my head is, yeah.
Yeah, and so for a lot of folks, I think this idea of like if you're making less than $100,000 a year in this business, like you probably shouldn't be running paid ads yet, right? There's so many ways. LinkedIn certainly one of them. Facebook groups, another one. Instagram, TikTok, lots of different ways to reach a market without spending a whole lot of money to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So 40, did you say 40 or 60?
It's 60. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's been what, 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think the average FA brings on 3 to 5 new clients a year.
Yeah, I read that in a study once, and I felt better about myself. I showed Molly immediately. I was like, "Hey, I'm not that bad at this."
Yeah, not that bad.
No.
Yeah, crushing the averages. What would you say to somebody, considering, they may have seen some of our videos, they've maybe seen some interviews, maybe they've seen some ads of ours. What would you say to somebody who's on the fence and maybe in a similar situation that you were in when you engaged with us?
Sure. I would say, number one, it's kind of interesting because you guys changed your business model a little bit. And where I was, the material I received on just how to identify a niche and how to think about a niche was gold. And so I think they can still watch your videos and get that, right?
Yeah, yep. We still have all of that content, like all of our sales training, all of our niche development, all of our offer creation, all of our LinkedIn training, still available. Yep.
Yeah. I would say start with that simply because I thought, and this is going to sound pretty ignorant, I thought the word niche was just a word they used in business school to sell tuition. And I may have been the most incorrect person about that. But I would start looking at the material and understand how valuable that is if you're on the fence or if you don't quite have the budget yet. And just look, and then that's where I would start. And if you disagree with that, then it's probably not a good fit. But if you agree with it, I would consider having a discussion. That's kind of what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And based on the work that we've done together, how would you, I don't know, what has it done for you?
It shifted my entire way I look at the marketing world. Yeah. And without that, I wouldn't be anybody but just a guy with postcards for seminars. So now I can look at a niche. You and I were talking about a niche through email about divorced people and how like we can have an educated conversation. You're still the expert, but I can at least get the ball rolling and identify new fields to attack with monetary efficiency now. So that's been amazing. That's been huge. And then within sales process, just on one-on-one conversations, that's been very helpful because selling in person is different than selling virtually. It just is, and you have to kind of get your sea legs, whatever the saying is, under you. So, yeah, and I mean, sincerely, I wouldn't be where I'm at without you.
Thanks.
And furthermore, when I took the LinkedIn and ran, and I was MIA for about a year because I wasn't ready for paid ads. It's not like I was out there looking at another firm. I can't even name another one. So it's been a fantastic business investment that we've made.
Thank you. I'm honored. Truly honored. How long, without the work that we've done, how long would it have taken you to get 60 clients?
I don't know if I would be in business. So if I would have white knuckled through it and just kept going, I mean, then 60 clients, I don't know, years. It would have taken years. Yeah, it would. I don't know. So
yeah. So often, one of the things that a lot of our clients have shared with me is that we work with a lot of really great people, and I have a belief that great people will figure something out no matter what. And so the only thing that we really offer for many of our clients is just the ability to compress time and shorten time frames. I was talking with another client who I've worked with in the past, and he was sharing with me that his next goal is to add another about 200K a year to his business, and he's like, it's going to take me, on my current track, it's going to take me about 4 years. He's doing pretty well. So, but he's like, it's going to take me probably about 4 years to get there. And I said, that's a 1 year, maybe a 6 month problem. It's not a 4 year problem.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. And I think the thing is that a lot of people think, well, I've got to learn all this stuff. That's, a lot of people are, they don't understand the order in which they need to learn a thing or develop a skill. And a lot of times, because there's this mass proliferation of content and information, we have a lot of people addicted to information. The problem with it is that information by itself doesn't create any transformation. And the reason why it doesn't is because it's often consumed in the incorrect order and implemented in the incorrect order. Right? So people actually don't know what to do in what order and how to do it and how to do it well, and actually get feedback from people who are experts in their field.
Yeah. I've never thought of that. I agree though.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the process that you've taught me that we've worked on is simply, if you want to attack a niche, start interviewing people, talk to people, and it doesn't get you to the finish line, but you have to do that part.
Yeah, it gets you pretty far though. It's really interesting that when you talk to people, if you like, I've got a hypothesis about a niche market that I think we would do really well with, and a lot of people are like, well, let's just build marketing around that. Well, what do you know about them? What do you know about that market? Right? What do they care about? Right?
I was listening to a channel the other day about kind of how to build a Facebook group, And I knew the things that I was listening to, I was like, this is the middle of the process. I mean, yeah, to your point. And I was like, it's like a sandwich. I was like, this is the meat. Where's the bun? Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yep. Yeah, because it's fascinating. Remember, we're dealing with people problems. Marketing is just a mechanism, right? But if we remember that whether we think we need to develop our sales skills, well, sales skills are really just like how to talk to people and have meaningful conversations with people about what they really want, right? It's more leadership than it is, give me a script and teach me how to read the script. It's not what it is.
No, it's not.
No.
No, it's not a fun way or an enjoyable way to run a business or probably have a long-term relationship with a client.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you. So any closing thoughts? We'll wrap this one up here. Any closing thoughts, John?
I would say if you're going to take a risk, I'm glad I took the risk with you guys. So I know we're getting started on a new project together, and I'm excited to get that going. And so thank you, and I enjoy having a virtual practice. And I owe an individual thanks to the rest of the folks on the team, and I'll make that a priority too. So that's all.
Well, John, again, thank you so much for spending this time with me, sharing your story with my audience. It's not that big, so my smallish audience. I'm sure it's going to help some people. So again, thank you. And two, I'm super proud of your work. Keep it up. Keep charging. I think you're just getting warmed up.
I feel the same way. So thank you, Mark.
You got it, buddy.